One of the biggest mistakes that Harry and Meghan continually make is oversaturation, overexposure, but to put it more specifically, it's just simply talking too much. They're volunteering way too much information all of the time, and oftentimes about themselves. Had Harry and Meghan spent a lot of their airtime, if you will, focusing on talking about other subjects, like causes that they allegedly care about, or, just anything but themselves, which then I guess would give them not very much to talk about, because it's not like either of them have interesting, successful careers or anything like that. But had they spent their time talking about something else besides themselves, we would have less of a paper trail, so to speak. We have a series of facts of things that Harry and Meghan have said previously that then when they say something new, you can almost always find something contradictory that they have said before, or you can prove it as a lie. And a huge factor in that happening so often with Harry and Meghan is just the sheer volume of interviews and content that they have pushed out that is self-focused and about themselves. As Polo Pony puts it, the entire reason that Harry and Meghan are furious with the British royal family is that they wouldn't protect them. But what they actually wanted was for Buckingham Palace to tell blatant lies on their behalf to cover up their poor behavior, and were furious when they would not do so. They could not grasp the difference between saying nothing, which the palace was prepared to do, and telling active untruths to the press. And that is the whole point of never complain, never explain. Never explain means that whether it's true or false, a consistent policy of silence gives no clues either way, without you having to actually incriminate yourself by lying. And silence starves negative publicity of oxygen. Clapping back to everything is throwing fuel on the fire. Very well said. I have said the same sort of a thing in that an organization, an institution, like the monarchy, but like another one too, like a company or something like that, would be extremely bad practice for them to lie, even to protect their own. That would be a terrible choice for so many reasons. And that is why the palace was between a rock and a hard place. Even if they wanted to come out and shut down a story, even if they were willing to say something wasn't true, even if it was because it made Meghan look so bad, they couldn't without sacrificing their integrity forevermore. It's just not possible. And Harry and Meghan didn't get that. And they wanted people to lie on their behalf, or at least to say that something wasn't true even though it was. And that's just not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And constantly trying to clap back to everything or go in and criticize stories or try to correct stories or counter stories all the time sets a precedent that you will always comment on things, and therefore then you can't get away with being silent about something controversial or something comes up. Like now Harry and Meghan are tied to the Tyler Perry drama. Their silence on that speaks volumes. Because they have come out and said so much about so many other things, then why aren't they talking about that? Or the surrogacy rumors. They've said so much about so many things. Why aren't they correcting the surrogacy rumors? So they've put themselves in a real pickle. Big surprise. I doubt every single time she said she was approached by someone or my friend told me to do it. Me too. I don't think she has friends constantly pushing her to do this stuff. I think that she doesn't want to be blamed for it not being received well, or she doesn't want it to be her idea in case people don't like it. Then it's not her idea. She was just gracious enough to publish the book because friends told her she should. It makes no sense. And she did not want it to be under the Netflix brand as ever. She didn't want it to be under the Netflix brand because she thought it would be such a huge success that she can later sell it to whoever she wants. I think that's true too. Good point. In an interview, Meghan compared as ever to Casamigos, which George Clooney was able to sell for I think its valuation was $1 billion or something crazy like that. Is that right? Am I remembering correctly? I did a video on it. I'll link it for you if I can find it. But she had definitely thought, she had no doubt in her mind that it was going to be a runaway success and it was going to be worth millions and millions of dollars, and that she could just sell it off and let people use her name or just take a back seat and be basically the spokesperson for it. It just goes to show her lack of business acumen to not understand that that was never going to happen for her or for that sort of a brand. Those types of products don't have the profit margins that alcoholic products do. Anyway, Scarlet Applejacks makes a good point about Meghan's comments that people should be allowed to be who they are authentically. Should they be allowed to be who they are authentically? All the collateral damage involved in such things? It's very simple. She knows the exact thing. She isn't authentic. To offset this problem, she talks about how authentic she is more than anything else. She thinks we will be all fooled by this. I also think that it was a huge mistake. It backfired in that it encouraged viewers to look at her show with authenticity in mind as a narrative. And then you couldn't ignore the lack of it. Because she brought up authenticity so often in connection to the show, with Love Meghan, you now can't ignore just how inauthentic it is. It made it stand out even more. Silly Requirements, I like that username, says, I cannot stand this woman at all, but I am starting to feel sorry for her. One of the things that rubs me, and I'm sure others wrong, is her trumpeting her amazing approach to motherhood. I'm beginning to suspect that if Lily ran to Meghan with a lost tooth, she would not have received the same loving attention that she gave to Archie. Most of us who had loving, attentive parents are not impressed by her response to a lost tooth because we would have reacted, or our parents would have reacted in the same way. Big deal. Of course you take note of a child's milestone. The more she crows, the more I see a neglected child in her past. I think that's a fair comment. You never know what people's past is or what they're going through, and it's important to hold space for that. And I think it is an accurate observation that Meghan seems sometimes to favor one child or the other. She appears to favor Archie sometimes and appears to favor Lily sometimes. And I think that's tricky to comment on or draw conclusions from, because it could just be the normal circumstances of kind of taking turns with what each child has or gets to do, or from a parent's perspective, finding the balance that feels like balance to your family across your children. But it could also be favoritism, and that is common within families that have narcissists or high levels of narcissism within the family, to have a lot of favoritism and playing off one or the other. So while I think that there are fair points in this comment, I also think that it's impossible to know more or to infer too awful much in that regard. Because balance can look very different to different people and in different ways. It's hard to tell exactly. And sometimes I have found in striving for balance, it doesn't always look the same because kids are so different. Creating balance can look out of balance to somebody who doesn't know the children's personalities, if that makes sense. This commentator says, this is what happens when you take advantage of an institution like the royal family for your own benefit. I think one of Meghan's biggest miscalculations, and Harry's, was thinking that a lot of the popularity and attention and whatnot had to do with them and not to do with the royals. It was always the royal stardust. T. Decker says, the other factor to consider, and that is that while there was an initial interest in the beginning, that was before we saw Meghan's true colors. Now she is seen as a liar, unlikable, a bully, and manipulative. Enough months and years has passed now that the stories have leaked out from numerous different avenues of her life with a variety of different people who can attest to that. People no longer want to give her the benefit of the doubt or listen to what she has to say. She is at heart a very unlikable individual. Exactly. What are the odds that one lady across different continents, across different decades, has consistent problems with almost everybody who enters into her life? Almost everybody. And almost every arena and different areas and different work formats or areas of work. There is always these consistent problems. And we have watched ever since she joined the royal family and got with Harry. I mean, coming up on a decade ago, not quite, but, over all these years, one common factor, and that's Meghan. Even in all of her independent projects and interviews and whatnot, there is one common factor. Somebody who is incredibly self-centered, incredibly unaware, and just constantly makes mistakes. and seems to not treat people very nicely or not be actually very thoughtful of how she affects other people. Meghan could have been so very successful if she had just smiled and waved at the public at royal engagements. Tally Talk says, remember when Meghan said she didn't want to do a stand and stir? Her words. Oh, does she mean actual cooking? I love stand and stirs. That statement solidified with me that she doesn't cook and she's a fraud. There's a reason why the stand and stir is one of the leading and top forms of cooking content. One of the only forms of cooking content besides competitions. Because it makes sense, because it works, because it's educational and informative. Duh, it lends itself to the purpose of the show perfectly. There's nothing wrong with a stand and stir. Pamela says, I'm a bit mystified about Netflix's partnership with Meghan in As Ever. So are we all. As far as I can tell, she uses white label products with her brand slapped on them. For all practical purposes, she is the brand. Her products are not sold at the Netflix website. Were the actual products featured in With Love Meghan? No. Since the Netflix contract is not being renewed, why would Netflix have her products in their brick and mortar stores that open later this year? If Netflix was actually involved in the management of As Ever, I don't think we'd be seeing the inept rollout of products that would instantly sell out. I think the purpose of having the products in the store, I mean, we don't know for sure if they're going to be. It's assumed that they will be because Netflix wants a wide variety of products and kind of to feature a variety of shows. But with season 2 not going well, there's a chance that they won't have Meghan's products in their brick and mortar stores. But I think that that was kind of presumed. I don't know that that was ever fully confirmed. I wonder if Meghan wanted to keep As Ever as separate as possible from Netflix if she was able to sell the brand to an investor for big bucks. She didn't want to split the proceeds with Netflix. I suspect it will go the way of the dodo when the Netflix's content is exhausted. Probably, I don't think that Meghan got enough momentum with As Ever for it to survive with Love Meghan failing or falling out of favor. Where Meghan could find success would honestly, quite frankly, be more of the influencer approach. If she were to sort of take what exposure she got from With Love Meghan and start doing it like on YouTube or just enhance her Instagram presence more. While that comes with its own set of issues and challenges and hypocrisy given her criticisms of Meta, her style of content would be more well suited to social media than it is to an actual streamer or an actual show production wise, because the content just isn't there. At the same time, I agree that if Netflix was more involved in the products, the way they make products for other shows, it would have been a lot more seamless and done better. But she wanted to keep it separate for probably vanity and for her lofty ideas for selling it. Take another listen to what Meghan said to Miss Greed in her podcast regarding working with Netflix. She tried very hard to talk it up as a partnership. I never considered it to be a partnership. They did not deliver in much the same way they messed up with Spotify. Agreed. I think that calling it a partnership is just a vanity situation. It's obviously to an extent a partnership because Meghan is the producer. Meghan is taking control of a lot of these things. But ultimately, Netflix is essentially their boss. They're the ones paying Meghan. So it's still a boss and employee type situation. Bless you, kitty cat. Christina Scallion says the cooking show coinciding with her product lunch was supposed to be her ticket to the billionaire club. Didn't quite work out. Motion Evolution says, I like your commentary, but is it not somewhat disingenuous to compare cooking to non-cooking shows? Her stats are fairly high in the genre. I'm definitely not a fan, but when you compare, like you say, you must compare appropriately. Shows are diverse to ensure lots of service income, so shows like cooking and lifestyle are much cheaper to make than, say, Squid Games, and draw their own audience. So I'm interested to see her stats against the same genre to see the peak and drop off by show and by guest. That's meaningful. Good point, but I have not seen those metrics. I'm not sure that Netflix releases them. If anything, we would probably get them next year. But Meghan had boasted an 80-person crew and demanded very expensive production. So this was probably absurdly expensive for this style of content. Even just her clothing budget alone would have been more than most lifestyle or cooking content would have cost. To compare the viewership across similar genres, here's the thing. Cooking to non-cooking shows, there really is no other show that's like Meghan's if you remove cooking from it. Just some lady crafting, walking in her garden sometimes and talking with people she knows or doesn't know, complete strangers. There's no other show like that, for good reason. That's not a show. It could be a social media thing. It's not a show, though. The cooking was the one thing that brought it into lifestyle content, that made it make sense, and kind of made it work and gave it a place, put it in a genre. And because Meghan doesn't do like DIY home improvement or anything like that, she couldn't really be on those types of shows that do like interior decorating and stuff. She couldn't really be on a show about like fashion and style. It's not about that. So the cooking was the anchoring that gave it a genre. So that's why it gets compared to shows that have cooking, because there was cooking in it, and that was the most clear, identifiable category on that show. And in comparison to other cookery shows, it did not perform well. So that's as much as we have at this point for that. The problem is both their personalities are not able to really thrive. Plus, they both don't know what it is to really work hard, and they don't have any work ethic. I think that is a huge part of the problem and a huge part of why they set themselves on this trajectory, because neither Meghan nor Harry really understood the temperature of the public, the reason why they were getting any media attention in the first place, nor did they understand just how much work and money goes into the lifestyle that they were enjoying and how much work it would be to do any of this stuff. Wisconsin Stacy says, Meghan is so selfish and self-absorbed that she will never be a point her finger inward and acknowledge her own failings. She is always and always will be a point her finger outwards and have her failings be everyone else's fault. This means Harry is going to be her fault person in the Netflix deal failing. She is 100% going to blame Harry for Polo and Live to Lead as the reason Netflix cut ties with them. It will never be due to the fact that she is the most hated woman in the world, and as a result, no one wants to support her. She is so awful. That was harsh, but also probably true that Meghan would never accept any degree of responsibility for the deal falling apart. I think that she is prepared to put Harry in the line of blame for anything and everything that goes wrong, because even on Oprah, I remember thinking it was a bit odd, like I wouldn't do this to my partner type of situation, where when she was saying that nobody gave her any help and that she felt like she wanted to end everything because she was so bummed out about the negative press coverage and the scrutiny, even though she wasn't seeing it, that people were calling and telling her, whatever. The point was she was trying to say that she was having such a hard time, couldn't get any help, nobody would help her, and thus she contemplated just doing away with everything. You know what I'm saying? I have to dance around the subject matter for YouTube's algorithm or they'll flag my video, but you know what I'm talking about in the Oprah interview. That really ultimately threw Harry under the bus in a few ways. It made it clear that Harry didn't do enough to help his wife, didn't do enough to prepare his wife or coach her or hire her help or communicate that she needed more help in terms of preparing for the role and, you know, mentally, emotionally being capable of tolerating it and handling it. He didn't get her the support that she needed and or didn't notice that she was struggling. If we were to take Meghan's word at face value, we all know that that probably is exaggerated to a great extent. But if we were to take Meghan's words at face value, that means that Harry was so out of touch and out of tune or heartless that he didn't notice how much she was struggling, didn't care, didn't reach out and help her, didn't try to fix it, didn't do anything until it got almost too late. You know what I mean? She really put a lot of blame on him inadvertently. I don't think she thought she was. I don't think he realized that she was. But looking at it, the biggest thing I thought was, okay, why didn't your closest circle, if no one else, your husband, step up and do more or notice what is happening here? And I would never allow something to be framed that way, where then it makes the closest people in my life look like they did nothing and were completely useless and had no awareness, no nothing, like just completely throw them under the bus like that. Even if it could just be interpreted that way. I would never do that because that's so not okay. So rude. Because that's really manipulative too. Daniela says, I still don't get what Meghan's show is about. Lifestyle in a stranger's kitchen and garden? No. Cooking? She cannot cook. Decorations? Well, that was not so bad. I liked the flowers. What makes me wondering is all the alcohol drinking. Like, why? She is a mother and drinking during the day is not okay. This is what happens to people high in narcissism and low in talents, an empty vessel. Well said. And I think it speaks to Meghan's lack of awareness. If you're very disliked, heavily criticized, and objectively are trying to kind of find an audience, rehab your image a little bit, things like that, then you would want to be really careful about stuff like alcohol, drinking alcohol in every single scene almost, talking about how much you drink. You would want to be careful about that just because it does open the door to judgment and it doesn't come off that great. For example, like somebody who's applying for a job isn't going to be vocal about how much they drink because it doesn't come across very well. It just doesn't. It's not that it's always a bad thing and always terrible choice, but ultimately it's not a healthy choice and it's not a responsible choice and it's only acceptable in certain circumstances. There's boundaries around it and it can be very unhealthy and it can be problematic. So you would just want to not associate yourself with anything in that realm if you were serious about rehabbing your image. So it does speak to her narcissism. I've just been on Flamingo Estate's site and cannot believe the way she ripped them off. Even the logo is similar. It's creepy. I'm sure they are less than pleased. Victoria says, if I'm going to a friend's house for a visit, I don't get gifts just for showing up. It's like a reverse hostess gift for a party. That's part of why the gift giving seemed so weird, so love bomby, so strange. Because yes, typically if you're invited to someone's house for dinner or anything, you know, if anything, you would bring them a small gift, some fresh flowers or, you know, perhaps a bottle of wine or an appetizer tray, you know, just whatever, something. You don't get a gift. It's very bizarre. It's even more strange when you consider the fact that this is more of a professional visit, a professional tone. Whether she knew these people or not, you know, some of the guests she'd never met before, so that would be strictly professional. Some of them were her friends, allegedly, but even still, this is her job. This is a workplace situation. So if she felt so compelled to give a thank you gift for people giving their time to be on her show, to try to like help her out, because I mean, obviously they're doing Meghan a favor by being on her show and or Netflix a favor. Because of that, if she felt so inclined to give them a gift, then she should have done it in private and let people, if they wanted to post to Instagram and thank her, that would have made her look better, her character look better than it does where she's like making a big point on the show to show that she gave these people gifts. Makes it seem all the more self-serving and bizarre given the professional setting. That makes it seem only self-serving. She's just trying to prove to people that she is magnanimous, that she is gracious, that she is generous. She's trying to show that and prove that through her show rather than actually doing it in real life in a way that's more quiet and meaningful in those relationships in real life. Instead, she's trying to propel it to image rehab status by putting it on her show where it doesn't fit in a professional setting. It's like she not only doesn't have or care much about etiquette, but it's as if she has zero experience with it. Someone here pointed out how gloaty Meghan was about telling the world how casual and cool she was meeting the Princess of Wales in her ripped jeans and nasty bare feet. How proud! Then, to meet a bunch of Fako celebrities, she decked herself out in jewelry, cashmere sweaters, linen, and expensive clothing. The woman seems to be insane or just can't keep her lies straight. I think it's all about her narcissistic tendencies to really focus on how she's going to be viewed in any given situation. She wanted to create a contrast and come across as uniquely down to earth and not trying hard at all, almost like she didn't care about who she was meeting when she was meeting royalty. Almost like I am with Harry and therefore I am on the same level as you and will not make any effort when meeting you type of a vibe. Whereas with these people, she wants to elevate herself in a way that feels like she's putting herself above them or on their level. So she's very careful to show up in designer things, expensive things, keep her jewelry on, stuff like that. Give you expensive gifts because she is, communicating where she views herself in a hierarchy through the way she presents herself in all these situations. That's my theory anyway. Sarah Beach says, I've studied mythologies and archetypes and I really, really hate Meghan's use of the term. It's well known that she used it incorrectly. Her podcast would have been more accurate described as stereotypes. An archetype is the ultimate genuine thing, but Meghan uses it as if it means the same thing as stereotype, a copy of an archetype, usually a poor copy, and indeed a label stuck on someone by others. I am curious what a podcast titled Archetypes should have actually been. I'm curious. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Amanda says, I'm surprised with all that we know about mental health and illness. We don't have more compassion for her. Her family's horrible, plain to see not a great support system. Mom was in jail. Allegedly, that's a rumor, I believe. I'm not sure that's confirmed. I don't know. I suspect she just needs love, therapy, and meds. She is insufferable, but that's just insecurity and lack of knowing who she is. We keep asking for her true self, but I don't think she even knows who that is. And that's why she loves acting. Maybe. And I do think in some circumstances, it makes sense to kind of feel bad. Like when I first saw Meghan and she constantly seemed so super insecure, I always thought that, perhaps that is just what we have here is real intense insecurity and it is showing up in super weird ways. But at the same time, everybody, as they mature and their frontal lobe finishes developing in their mid to late 20s, has to then take on full, unequivocal responsibility for themselves, their actions, their flaws, all of it. And if you are self-aware, then you can recognize those flaws and it's incumbent upon you to reach out for help or do a lot of work to solve them. And don't keep putting yourself out there and blaming everyone else for shortcomings in the meantime. Like actually put in the work and set your reactions on the back burner until you've worked on yourself. And then you can start taking offense to things again if people are still critiquing you or not receiving you super well. Catherine Green says, the brand also doesn't have any depth. I think it would have done better if it had a charity angle tied to Archewell. I agree. And also if it propped up makers and small businesses and spotlighted like honey makers. It feels like a brand for brand's sake. That being said, she has revolved through the top people in branding, comms, PR, who I'm sure have all tried their best, but at the end of the day, their common denominator is her. I think this is the best brand they could launch for her against her difficult personality and lack of follow-through. Sadly, it's probably true, although I still wonder why it didn't go the way of, like, crafty stuff like paper goods and pens and stationery, because that would have made sense. And she keeps mentioning how she used to be a calligrapher. Then make that your brand, Meghan. At least you have a history of it that you won't shut up about. Gremlin says, when Harry and Meghan's reputations are in the gutter again, they do something, anything to remind the public they're royal too. Pathetic and conceited. I think the royal ties are the one thing they keep relying on to get publicity, because without it, there is no reason to publicize Harry and Meghan. Meghan's fake feminism was exposed when she posted photos like a fashion shoot of herself at the National Gallery just to steal attention from Camilla's first speech on domestic violence, intended to get it out of the shadows and publicly address it so victims will get help. I hope Meghan Markle's squaddies and fans experienced uncomfortably tough mental gymnastics trying to justify Meghan's actions. That's what it would take to justify those types of things, because even when there was no reason for overshadowing someone's stuff, she did. And I have a video. It could be out by now or it might not yet be. So I'll try to link it if I can, if it's already out. Otherwise, subscribe so you don't miss it. That analyzes Meghan's approach to media seemed to have been lifted from Diana's history with the media, because Diana would try to overshadow Charles's engagements after their divorce and when their relationship started to get rocky. And Meghan does that to the royal family. So I feel like that's a connection that is less explored than some others. She is accusing us of having to pay our bills if we criticize her, whatever that means. But she made millions of dollars criticizing the royal family to pay her bills. Hypocrite. If there's one thing that seems present in almost all of Meghan's criticisms of others, it would be hypocrisy. It's almost always a hypocritical call out from Meghan. Casey says the shows in this series are just as disjointed and awkward as the last. And Molly says it would help her to have Harry show up, perhaps at the end of a show, eating the food she prepared. He's her meal ticket. People may tune in if they get a glimpse of Harry and the children, for goodness sakes. I don't know. I honestly think Harry has become just as unlikable as Meghan. I know in person a lot of people find him to be more charming, but on screen, across his interviews and things like that, I have not found him to be likable. And I think his public image has taken so many hits that it wouldn't necessarily help. Granted, there might be more curiosity, but at the same time, then that would need a totally different format of a more homey version of Meghan making foods and Harry enjoying them at the end or something like that. It might have worked better for them, but I don't think Harry's interested in anything like that because it would have been more personal. But having Harry just randomly pop in to eat the food at the end, I don't know. I don't know that would have worked. What do you guys think? I think I would have been annoyed by him, and I don't think it would have necessarily worked with the format that she had for the show. Nina kind of agrees. She says, I think Harry's absence on the show is deafening. It screams 1,000 words about their relationship. I think 1, he refused to be on the show. That's what I think. Or 2, she didn't want to share the spotlight with him because he would suck all of the attention. Maybe. Or 3, it would show all the cracks and awkwardness about the current state of their relationship. Although we always see Meghan clawing at Harry and vocally they both say kind words about one another and appear supportive, you do have to wonder. I mean, like, remember when she posted the surfing video of Harry surfing at a, like, pool, you know, with manufactured waves? That is kind of a beginner way to surf or a way to hone your skills. It's definitely easier than surfing in the ocean. And so I personally, if it were my husband, would not have posted that to Instagram with the What a Man song. I would not, because it makes it look almost like you're roasting him. Like all he can handle are the pool waves. I would have waited for him to have an impressive wave in the ocean and be like, oh, this is actually impressive. And people who surf will be like, oh yeah, good for him. He actually can surf. Doing it in a training setting kind of could have been interpreted as a passive-aggressive rib. So I think that there is a lot of awkwardness and probably a significant amount of tension, especially around projects like this. That I don't think it would have been, that I agree. I don't think it would have worked well to have Harry like on the show with her. I don't know that would have worked out very well. Plus, like, he's a late Virgo, a September Virgo, and she's a Leo. Their compatibility is actually really low. So in a dynamic where it's like on camera, that probably would have shown. She wants to give privacy to people. Just say the name of the people she admires. But for the royal family, she is ready to say every little thing that she knows. How hypocritical. So this is in reference to on Emma Grede. She said she couldn't say who she admires because she needed to protect their privacy, which is insane. There is no reason to not say who you admire just because of their privacy. You could even just say, I have this friend Sophie who I really admire because she's so strong, or something like that, like emotionally and mentally strong. You don't have to say their last name and like out them for real. It's weird. But then, yeah, she divulges anything and everything about her in-laws. What an overstep of her place and of privacy. She never had any interest in supporting Harry in his role as a working royal. This became obvious during their engagement interview. She seemed annoyed at the whole teamwork element. Am I right in thinking that if you're a sensible celebrity, surely you might lessen your presence somewhat to avoid overkill? Yes, you would. So that when you do release something, people are excited and interested, not rolling their eyes with exhaustion and thinking, not you again. What do you think? I'd be interested to know. Yes, no, I really do think that that's the case. And one of the key problems with Harry and Meghan is that they are constantly in the media and obsessive about being in the media to the extent that everyone is purely tired and sick of them. There is a reason why celebrities try to avoid oversaturation and overexposure. And one of my favorite comments I have seen about the With Love Meghan show, an authentic flop we are all holding space for. Thank you for joining me for today's video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a happy day ahead. I'll see you next time. Bye!